Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Bigfoot Tales, and I want to thank you for your support and coming back for more, and I hope to be able to bring you these tales of the wild men of the woods and the hairy man and the elusive one, coming to you back through many years of research material. Excuse me, a little bit of allergies going on today. Spent a good amount of time yesterday out in the woods and got into some things that I probably shouldn't have, but that video will be coming up. But again, I want to thank you for tuning in to Bigfoot Tales, and today we're going to jump in the tour bus, and the Bigfoot Tales tour bus is going to take you to the great state of Idaho. I got two stories in particular here, one from 1883 and the other one from 1902, that are very interesting stories, especially when you compile them together and look at them in their vicinity or location that they occurred in. The first one from 1883 is going to come to us out of Pocatello, Idaho, and the second one is from 1902, is going to come to us from Camas, Idaho, or Camas. I've heard it pronounced both ways. I'm not specifically certain which way is the correct one. But the Camas, Idaho, or Camas, Idaho story is centered in that area that is at the tail end of, or bottom end of Boise National Forest. It's just a bit east of Boise on Route 20 and slightly west of the Craters of the Moon National Monument. And what really piqued my interest on these two stories is the fact that Pocatello is just to the east of the Craters of the Moon National Monument. So these two stories, in spite of the fact that they take place so many years apart from each other, are interesting simply because of the fact that for all intents and purposes, these two sightings actually fall within a reasonably assumed, territorial range for these so-called Bigfoot creatures or people, depending upon how you want to look at it. But we'll look at the older article first. It's from the Crawfordsville Star newspaper. It's dated Thursday, March 22nd, 1883, and it's entitled "Wild Man of Camas." Subtitled or bylined, "A creature with rabbit skin robe and sagebrush bed is slain in Idaho." And this is one of those kind of iffy stories that, you have to really look at the whole thing and then put in a lot of supposition into it to try and figure out exactly what they're trying to say here. But let's get right into the article. The celebrated wild man of the Camas Prairie was killed recently by some parties traveling through the prairie. While the travelers were camped in the foothills on the edge of the prairie, one of them, named McElhaney, went a few hundred yards from camp to kill some ducks, taking with him a shotgun loaded with large shot. When only a couple of hundred yards from camp, the wild man of Camas jumped up from his hiding place and, after running a short distance, stopped and looked at McElhaney through his large, clear eyes for a moment. Then, with a shriek that struck terror to the hunter and caused him to shudder as the echo resounded through the forest, the man, with the ferocity of a savage beast of the jungle, made for McElhaney so fiercely that in order to ensure his own safety, he emptied both barrels of the gun into him, when he fell, apparently dead. McElhaney went to him when the strange being began to revive, and he put his foot on the man's neck and called to his comrades to bring an axe, which they did with all possible haste. The man escaped just as they arrived, and with a pitiful moan regained his feet and started to run. The axe was thrown at him, and as he turned his head to look back, it struck him in the center of the forehead, and he dropped lifeless to the ground. On examination, he was found to be rather tall, with full clear eyes and an extraordinarily large head. Appeared to be about 45 years of age, although not a gray hair could be seen. The wavy black hair of his head hung low down onto his body, and his bushy beard was about 2.5 feet long. The body was also covered with a thick growth of hair about 2 inches in length. This was also black and very fine. The finger and toenails were 2 inches long and resembled claws more than nails. He was wrapped in a long robe made of rabbit skins. The skins were sewn together by sinews. On examining the place from which he made his appearance, it was found that he had a very comfortable bed, which was made of the soft bark of sagebrush. It was under an overhanging rock and well protected from the wind. Near the bed were 2 rabbits, which had most likely been killed by stones. About 10 years ago, an insane stage driver left Boise City and has never been heard of before. The wild Man of Camas may be the same, having taken up his abode in the then desolate prairie, but seldom visited by white men. The wild Man of Camas has, since first seen in 1873, been dreaded by the lonely traveler and prospector, who will be relieved to know that he is dead. This article in particular has a couple of points here I want to go over before we get into the second article coming out of Pocatello. We have a subject here that is very tall, has a large head, has a lot of hair, and has covered with a thick growth of hair about 2 inches in length all over his body, which was black and very fine. The fact that he was wearing a rabbit skin robe shows that this is not a wild animal, but somebody of human intelligence that could actually manufacture his own clothing, such as it is. It's just a robe. It doesn't really go into any details as to whether it was a close-fitting robe, like a bathrobe or something like that would be. It could actually have been, more of a cape type of robe.
Coming back down.
But the fact that he was wearing something that was manufactured and sewn together with sinews indicates that this was not a wild animal, but a human being. And when you look at the details of the killing of this creature, you have to wonder why these men were not looked at as murderers. Number one, a double barrel charge at that close range should have actually killed a normal person, which indicates to me that this was actually a much larger than normal person, being the fact that after he was stunned and felled, he tried to get up again and run, and it wasn't until actually an axe was sunk into his head that he did die. So you have to ask yourself, where's the rest of the story? I couldn't really find anything more on as to any possible prosecution or any law enforcement looking into this and finding that there was any manslaughter or murder done here. So that's kind of a dead end at this moment, but like with all of these stories, I'm always going to continue looking for some of the things that are behind the scenes. But let's go back to a little bit east in the area of Pocatello, Idaho. This comes out of us from the Carroll Herald of February 5th of 1902, titled Wild Man in Idaho. Hairy monster, 8 feet tall, terrifies Bannock County. And again, this is something that's, now 110 years old over. It's bylined out of Salt Lake City, Utah, January 30th. So this was a reprint, but it comes from a correspondent of the Deseret News. And you may have watched my other video of the Salt Lake incident of the wild man trial where a Bigfoot hoax or wild man hoax was attempted. But anyhow, let's get right into it. According to the Pocatello, Idaho correspondent of the Deseret News, residents of the little town of Chesterfield, located in an isolated portion of Bannock County, Idaho, are generally excited over the appearance in that vicinity of an 8-foot, hair-covered human monster. He was first seen January 14th when he appeared among a party of young people who were skating on the river near John Gooch's ranch. The creature showed fight. Flourishing a large club and uttering a series of yells, he started to attack the skaters, who managed to reach their wagons and got away in safety. Measurements of his tracks showed the creature's feet to be 22 inches long and 7 inches broad, with the imprint of only 4 toes. Stockmen report having seen the tracks along the range west of the river. People of the neighborhood are feeling unsafe while the creature is at large and have sent out 20 men to effect its capture. And again, I haven't found out any more about whether or not there was any actual capture of this creature. Again, as always, I continue to look for all these little bits and pieces here as I put together a collection of Bigfoot tales that more and more indicate that this creature that we seek is actually not a wild animal, but a more of a feral human, if you want to call it that. Going back through the years, the descriptions have always been similar to human descriptions. These creatures are always generally very tall, covered with hair, very strong, and again, I keep going back to this point that I want to keep making, that Bigfoot didn't just appear out of nowhere back in the 1950s and the 1960s when the Bigfoot tracks from California and the Willow Creek film shot by the Patterson-Gimlin team happened. It just didn't pop out of thin air. This has been around almost since the beginning of time as we know it here on this planet. And we have to ask ourselves some very serious questions if we're going to come to a successful conclusion to the argument of to whether Bigfoot exists or not. Number one, we have to decide whether this is actually a monster or whether it's a mythical creature that doesn't exist, whether it's actually a living, breathing creature roaming our forests and woodlands. And then we have to go from there. I think one of the problems that we have in the field of Bigfoot research today, and yes, I know there are people out there that are screaming that you can't be a Bigfoot researcher if Bigfoot hasn't been proven to exist. I think it's been plainly shown that there is, in fact, something there, but the problem continues to be that what that creature is, or whatever that entity is that we keep seeking, we keep trying to put it into a box that it doesn't really belong in. I know there are a lot of people out there that insist, and I think wrongly, that Bigfoot is a holdover from Gigantopithecus. And in another video, I'm going to actually address this subject, and I'm going to demonstrate that this, in fact, probably is not true, simply based upon scientific fact and conclusion based upon observed specimens of various gorillas and other primates. But that's going to, I'm going to digress here if I keep on that line of track. But I think, to get back to my point here, is that I think the biggest problem that we have here in the Bigfoot community is that, for the most part, most Bigfoot researchers, as we call ourselves, are not actually hunting Bigfoot, but we're out there just looking for some sort of sign. We're not actually hunting the physical being, the physical creature that we call Bigfoot today. We're looking for something that, may set our beliefs in concrete and prove to us once and for all that this thing exists. I don't think that's really necessary. I think if we're going to find one, we actually have to hunt him down. And we're only going to do that if we take the effort to learn about this creature, learn about its habits, learn about its, feeding practices, its travel practices, and, how these things live. Far too often we see these endless videos of people walking along a park trail and, waving their shaky camera back and forth, and getting some brief shots of shadows and globs of moss or whatever, and they're claiming that they're seeing Bigfoot, but the reality is that they're not. I think it's reasonably safe to assume that probably over 90% of what's been presented to us as proof of Bigfoot or suggested as being Bigfoot images are actually nothing more than shadow and misinterpreted objects. And one of the problems that we have with these video imagery is that it's really hard to tell what some stuff is, because when you look at a video, you're looking at it in a two-dimensional view instead of a three-dimensional view. So you have no depth perception, and because of that, you have no spatial correlation of all the other stuff around. So while it may look like a Bigfoot, it in reality, if you looked at it with your naked eye, you would see that it was probably nothing more than a shadow or piece of moss hanging off of a tree. But anyhow, again, to get back to the original starting point of this, is that these are two different Bigfoot stories that come from Idaho, very close to each other, and so I think there's definitely a probability of a Bigfoot population in Idaho. There are going to be those of us that know beyond is in fact population there. But I would, spend some looking in the Boise National Forest and the, over toward the Salmon Chalice National Forest, Bayat National Forest, and up in that area. I would probably do some serious research in that area if it's within your findings of these things. But that's it. 2 articles for today on the Camas wild man and the Pocatello 8-foot hairy hominid. That newspaper articles, both of them from one from 1883, the other one from 1902. Both of them indicative of a Bigfoot story. And I hope you enjoyed the video and today's story, and we'll see where the tour bus takes us next time. And don't forget to comment, rate, and share, and subscribe, and come back for more Bigfoot tales.